Okay, so I'm hoping that you can hear me now. I almost forgot to put my, why is that playing? Almost forgot to put my microphone on. So I am live in the studio today working on this gorgeous raffle quilt made by members of my local quilt guild. And I was asked to quilt it, and I have a plan for how I'm doing it. So I'm doing ruler work in the blue, just straight line quilting, and in the lights, which it looks kind of like really bleached out in here. But in the lights, I am doing feathers, like really pretty feathers. And then I'm doing computerized quilting in the stars because I'm not great with doing a design in the star, and like I just haven't mastered that yet. So I know my limitations, so I'm going to go ahead and do computerized in the stars. So let's see, I've got a couple of different things that like are kind of limitations on this quilt, I guess. So there is, I'm basting it as I go. And so with doing that, I can't switch back and forth between the lights and the darks and like roll it back and forth. So I'm doing all of the straight line quilting in the blues first. This quilt is huge, so I'm on like pretty much the max that I would like to do on my quilt frame. And this one's 104. I might be able to do like a few inches larger than this, but like I'm at the max on my 12-foot frame. And I don't know what that is saying. I'm showing an error, so I'm hoping that like everything's okay on the YouTube's end. I'm using a new streaming platform. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and work on this just a little bit. So if you're new here, I'm Kayla, and I've been quilting for like about 12 years. Like I'm not really sure, but I just recently started my own long arm company. And before I was quilting on a domestic on a frame. So if you don't know what that is, it is literally a domestic sewing machine with a very narrow throat. And like this throat is 24 inches. The machine that I was using before was about 8. So a lot of restrictions with that one, hardly any restrictions with this one. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on this, and while we're working, feel free to drop questions in the chat if you have any, and I'll answer them as we go along. I'm going to go ahead and switch screens and work on a little bit of ruler work. So as you can see, this part is not quilted, and as a plan of like which way that I want to go, I'm going to start in this corner down here, trace around this sashing, and then come over into my log cabin block. Sometimes I will clamp off on the sides and sometimes I won't, but this one is pulling just enough to where I'm going to go ahead and put my clamp on my backing. If I'm moving back and forth a whole lot, sometimes I won't clamp off. Sometimes my ruler is very squeaky, and I haven't figured out how to make it not squeaky. So this one is the one that is the last block sewed onto this log cabin. This is the one that I want to start, otherwise I'll trap myself and then have to tie off. Okay, so I'm at a dead end, and I will do just a couple more tie-off stitches. Grab my thread and then pull my bobbin thread up, and then if you can see my hands, I am going to pull enough to where I'm able to tie and bury those, and I'm not doing that right now. I'll work on that later. So now we will just look to make sure that everything that needs to be quilted so far has been. Sorry if I'm going too fast, I don't want to make you dizzy. So it does look like I do have everything quilted that needs to be quilted. And I'll go ahead and switch views and advance the quilts. So I do need to be able to quilt a sashing row and a whole block set. So I don't want to go too far. And I'll just go ahead and smooth this out. Whoops. So I'm feeling to make sure that my batting is smooth underneath. And then I'm also checking down the line of this bar to make sure that like everything is straight with this bar right here. So a lot of the times I'll just pick a reference point at on the quilt and just kind of go off of that. Okay, so this part right here could be moved up just a little bit. And then my 2 reference points on my 0 center tape, one side is 52 and the other side is 54. So it's right on 54 over here. Whoops. So it's right on 54. So my batting feels completely straight underneath. So I want to go ahead and baste. So if I have like a little bit of like a extra fullness, what I'll do is I'll pull it just like that to flatten it out. It timed out. So I'm going to bring my long arm all the way down to where my ruler base is hitting this bottom bar, and then I'm going to switch to 1 stitch per inch because I want to baste the whole thing all the way across to make sure that it's not moving around any more than it has to, especially since I have a lot of areas that are unquilted as I move it forward. I'm going to switch my basting back up to 5 stitches per inch. I like to keep my sides basted in a pretty tight basting stitch. And you can tell that there's a little bit of extra fullness, so I'll work that in as I go. Sorry, I'm blocking your view. Okay. So I am ready to start quilting again. So I really don't expect to have a lot of viewers on some of my first live streams. This is something that I do want to start doing maybe once a week if at all possible. So, and I do want to kind of start scheduling them out to where like Tuesday's live streaming day or something like that. I'm not sure exactly how I want to make it work. So since there is not any questions on the screen, I'm going to give you a little bit of background with this, this quilt top. So it is 104 by 104, And the color palette, we decided on doing red, white, and blue because of next year being the Quilt Guild show is going to be Americana themed. So this will be the raffle quilt for a quilt show that is scheduled out 12 months from now. So that gives the Guild plenty of time to sell the tickets or whatever else that they need to do. The pattern, I do have in the description a very close pattern linked. It's the Star Log Cabin quilt from Eleanor Burns. This is close to, but it's not exactly the same. So members of the Guild decided that the blocks in the pattern that they were using needed to be resized. So the actual log cabin blocks were, I believe, sized up because they were way too small. And with resizing the log cabin blocks, they also resized the sashing. That way the stars were big enough to, where they look like they fit. So the whole quilt was rewrote, the whole pattern was rewrote with members of the Guild. And then as far as like my quilting technique, my quilting process for this quilt, I had done a mock-up, and let me grab that. So I thought this was kind of a neat way to do a mock-up for a custom quilt. I actually drew the pattern onto this quilt with pencil, just regular pencil, traced it out. And then in the stars, I colored them in with colored pencil, and then the blue, I colored them in with, it was supposed to be a blue colored pencil, but it actually was purple. So then I was able to decide on what quilting pattern. So I ended up doing like 2 or 3 different patterns on this quilt. And the members of the raffle quilt committee decided on these feathers in the white, and then the straight line quilting in the blue. The red was computerized quilting, like I had said, because I don't feel comfortable repeating the same design by hand in the red and make it look like it matches. So that was my mock-up. You can kind of see the texture on it, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this. It might get donated to be used as stuffing in a dog bed for the Humane Society, because there's a person that takes all of my extra scraps and stuffs dog beds with them. So that's kind of neat. Okay, so I don't see, oh, I've been live for 20 minutes already. So that's kind of interesting. I feel like maybe I can talk for 20, well, I've not been talking a whole lot. I'm going to go ahead and get started working on some of the blue in this second row. And I don't know how much longer that I'm going to be live, just because I kind of planned out this live, but I scheduled it right during lunchtime. So I will do 5 or 6 stitches to kind of lock it in. And then I still will tie knots at the end and bury the threads. I just feel like that is the most secure way to do lots of starts and stops on a quilt that is a utility quilt, hopefully, and will be used lots and lots. Okay. So just go ahead and start. Like I said, I always start on the very last block sewn onto the log cabin set, or in the sashing for that log cabin set, because otherwise I'll like lock myself into a corner. Still on baste. on these edges, I'm trying to stay a 1/2 inch instead of a 1/4 inch away from the edge because that's still going to be wrapped up with about a 1/4 inch of binding. And I just ran out of bobbin thread. I should have checked it after I got done basting. Okay, so since this is live and unscripted and just kind of play by play, you get to see how I tie off whenever I've ran out of thread. So depends whatever I have on hand. I'll pull back quite a few threads. I don't want to break it, so that's why I'm not using my seam ripper, because more often than not I will accidentally break the thread whenever I'm trying to pull it back, and then I'll have to pull it back even further. Come on. Move this out of the way. See if I'm stuck on something under here. Okay. See if I can find my tweezers, or a set of tweezers. Man, I don't know if you can hear my stomach growling. I have a few different spots where I usually keep them. Oh, I was using them to pull lint out of my sewing machine. I swear I would lose my head if it was not attached. I might have to pull it back further, that way I can tie it with my fingers. Although tweezers do make it a lot easier. Okay, well, I'm not looking for them any longer. Oh, I found them. That's all I had to say. These tweezers are actually for my serger. So they're just a little bit bigger. Well, that looks hideous. There we go. Okay, got that pulled tight. My needle is, which I can't ever seem to get it to focus on the GoPro, but it has an open end on it, so I can stab it into the fabric, and I'll take it about as far as I can go, and then it is short enough that I'm probably going to have to use my tweezers. Okay, so my hand probably blocked that, but I did pop it right into the end of the needle, and it'll just pull it right through. It doesn't do great with like a lot of resistance. And then I'll just snip that off. So that's hidden. And then I have my new, better put this back in the pin cushion. My new bobbin thread is in, so then I can just go to about the last point and then pull up my bobbin thread. And pull this out of the way, and then I'll bury that one the same way. 2 knots and then bury it. Okay, so I have been live for almost 30 minutes and I don't see any comments or questions coming in. So I'm going to go ahead and end the live stream for today. If you enjoyed watching this, if you could hit like, that really helps push my content out to other viewers that may also like it. And if you want to see more content like this, then maybe consider subscribing. And it really helps me put more content out for free and not keep it behind a paywall. And I feel like I do give a lot more patterns and just tips that I don't want to say other people don't do, because a lot of people do, but there's also a lot of people starting to put things behind a paywall, and I really do not want to ever put things behind a paywall. So that money that I'm making from the AdSense revenue on YouTube is enough to kind of give me a little bit of incentive to continue to make free content. So I guess that's it. And